Here are 40 things I wish I knew when I was in my 20s. First one, stop trying to figure out what you can get away with and start seeing how much you can push yourself. I learned this when I was in a different kind of industry in my early 20s. In this industry, a lot of my colleagues and/or competition, they were selling a product that they would get from Miami. I was in New York at the time, and when they would get this product, what they would do is they would dilute it, make it less potent in order to stretch it out. And they were kind of just cheating, looking for shortcuts. When they would distribute it to the consumers, it was less potent, right? It gave them a bad reputation. What I did instead was I went straight to Miami, to the source. The reason this was happening is because people were getting it from other people in Miami. They were the middleman, so they were getting it for a higher price because they didn't want to go all the way down to Miami themselves because there was a lot of risk involved in it. You had to have more money to get it from the source. It was more difficult and arduous. But for me, I thought, man, I could just try to get away with selling an inferior product like the rest of my competition, or I can just go to Miami and go get it. I took the plane to Miami and the Greyhound bus back to New York. Now I had the most potent product amongst my competitors. Instead of diluting it, I just charged more. And this allowed me to make a lot of more money than my competitors. What's the lesson here? I wasn't necessarily better than them. I just had a better product because I was willing to do more than they were willing to do to accomplish their goals. As it relates to other goals in life, people ask me, what's the easiest way to get in shape? Or do I have to count calories to lose fat? Or how to make the most amount of money in the least amount of time? And the problem is they're looking to see what they can get away with instead of how far they can push themselves. If you're willing to push yourself more than everyone else, you can accomplish more than everyone else because life is cause and effect. And the more extreme you are willing to be, the more extreme results you can get. The next lesson is long-term thinkers always win. So when I was in that other profession, one thing I realized was a lot of people who were around me were dying and getting sent to prison. And it really hit me when one of my friends, SV, he got sent to life in prison for double homicide. He killed those people. He definitely did. He deserved it. That's why I don't go around saying free SV because he definitely did it. 100%. My other boy, Esco, he was murdered by some rivals. And then my father blew his brains out. One thing I noticed about all three of those circumstances is they were all thinking short term. And I was at the time too. And that's when I said, you know what, fuck, I got to start thinking long term. When you start thinking long term, you make better decisions. Because check this out, the things that are bad for you in the short term are typically good for us in the long term. Eating healthy today, you may not enjoy it as much as eating some candies and cakes right now. Eating healthy in the short term, if we do that for a long enough period of time, it'll be good for us in the long term. Studying today may not be the same as going to the amusement park, getting high, getting drunk, right? It may not be as fun, right? You may have to miss out on getting high, getting drunk, right? Because you're studying, you're working on something, but it's good for you long term. The contrary is true as well. Typically, that we enjoy in the short term are bad for us long term. The most delicious food, candy, cake, sugar, processed food, Doritos that have been engineered to be tastier than regular food. They're good for us short term. We love them short term, but long term, they're bad for us. Not studying, not reading, not working hard, being diligent, partying and bullshitting. It may be fun in the short term. It's bad for us long term. But what we don't understand is all things are like that. So the more we can expand our time horizon, typically the better decisions we make. If we make all our decisions based off how will I feel about this decision 10 years from now, you'll be doing all types of shit different than you do currently. But the problem is most young people, and I was guilty of this as well, right? I was guilty of thinking short term. Most young people do this because they haven't been alive that long. If you're only 20 years old, you think about 5 years from now, that thing, 5 years is 25% of your entire life. It's probably 50% the life you're cognizant of because you don't remember a whole lot of shit before the age of 5. Right? It's a significant part of your life, right? Because you ain't been alive that long. The more you can think long term, the better decisions you make. When I saw this happening to people around me, I thought, okay, what do I want long term? And I said, okay, I need to switch into a different kind of industry, which is safer. And that's when I switched to online training. And I said, I'm just going to do this. And it was bad for me short term, right? Because I wasn't like saving money. Because remember, I was thinking short term. So I didn't have no bunch of money saved or nothing like that. I had to start from the bottom and I had to just start working hard. I went from living the lifestyle that Pusha T and them rap about to having a job taking orders from motherfuckers, right? And that was bad for me short term, but long term, I knew what I was working towards. As you can see, it worked out. Had I stayed on that path, we know where that shit ends. The next thing I wish I knew when I was 20, displaying competence is the only way to get support from other people. So I get a lot of messages from people who say, man, my family doesn't support me, or my friends don't support me, or my girl doesn't support me. Nobody believes in me. here's the thing. If they don't believe you can do something, it's for a reason. And that reason is you have not displayed competence in that field yet. It doesn't mean you can't do it, but they don't have any reason to believe that that's something you can do, especially if they haven't seen anyone else do it in their circle. The way they're acting towards you is totally rational, and it's okay. You need to make peace with that. So it used to bother me if I had ambitions or when I was working on something and nobody supported me. Initially, it was like, I felt the same way. I think I just realized, there's no reason for them to believe in me. I haven't displayed competence in this. If I had a track record of doing the shit I said I wanted to do, then it would have made perfect sense. It would have been stupid not to believe in me. Instead of being mad at your family or your friends who don't support you or don't believe in you, just understand it's just human nature. They've never seen you do this shit before. You ain't did it before. It's just an idea. But you got to remember, God gave you that vision. He didn't give it to everyone else. It's your job to fulfill it. Now, once you start displaying competence, then they'll have confidence in you. And what's going to happen, because I stopped talking about what I was going to do. Like, I didn't tell nobody what I was planning on, because I had read in Malcolm X's autobiography. He said, don't tell people your goals, because if you fail or change your mind, nobody knows. And I thought that was dope. He also said it's more impressive. It just seems like it happened. So I'm working on this thing and I'm keeping that in mind. I didn't tell people, but I did, I'm posting YouTube videos. I'm doing shit. They see me grinding. Nobody's showing a whole bunch of love. Nobody's supporting me the way I would have hoped. And it bothered me a little bit, right? Especially when I started getting some success and I had fans who were bigger supporters than my friends and family. But it's difficult to be a prophet in your own land. It's okay. If you keep going, you'll get so much success that your success becomes like there's a gravitational pull, but it's got to be big enough. Like the way gravity works, right? It's got to be a large enough mass to start bringing people in. Once the success was big enough where it couldn't be ignored, then people say, how can I get involved with what you're doing? The homie White Boy Brian was like, man, I want to work with you. How can I be involved? Like, shit, man, I need some help. Let's go, let's get it. And we started doing it. He still works with me now. That's what happens, right? The bigger your success, the more gravitational pull you'll have. The next lesson, the more you sweat during peace, the less you bleed during war. For example, I remember I had a friend and he came to a lot of money super fast. This was my early 20s. And instead of taking that money, doubling down on it, investing it somewhere, he said, fuck it. He went straight to the Louis store, went to the Gucci store. He fucking bought a bunch of drugs, rented like a fucking hotel suite, called a bunch of escorts over. Man, this motherfucker was living crazy for like a week. And he spent all the money. The thing is, he thought the money would keep coming from his endeavor, right? But the thing he was doing, other people saw the success and then the field got crowded and he wasn't successful anymore, right? Here's the thing. Once things get easier, that's when you need to start going harder. That's when you need to start focusing and working even harder. Because nobody's life is going to be an unbroken boulevard of green lights, right? Your next tragedy is around the corner. So when things are good or when things are easy, what you want to do is work even harder and get ready for the bullshit. Because some bullshit is going to happen. Whether it's economic crisis, I've lived through several economic crises, a fucking pandemic, natural disasters. I lived through a lot of natural disasters. Hurricane Sandy came through, fucked up New York, and I was there. People in your family are going to die. Friends are going to die. Your immediate family, your friends, they may need your help, and you need to be ready for all of that. You can't expect things to just fucking run smooth because it's almost never works like that. If you get a pocket where everything's going right, that's when you need to go fucking super hard and get as much money as possible, build much more resources and much more defenses as possible. It is not time to start going on vacation, enjoying life, all that bullshit, because the next fucking tragedy is around the corner. Your life is going to be a series of tragedies. Everyone you know is going to die. There's going to be more natural disasters. It happens all the time. There's an economic recession every 10 years on average. Your business may be going well, but things can change. I know some guys, they were making a lot of money with search engine optimization and linking it to affiliate stuff. And then Google overnight changed their algorithm. Fuck them, took them out of business. My jeweler, he ain't do nothing wrong, but Russia decided to invade Ukraine. It's difficult for them to get diamonds now. So business slows down because he just can't get the inventory. He was asking me if he could buy some diamonds he sold to me off me so he could sell them for higher prices. That wasn't his fault. Shit happens. Some shit is gonna happen at some point. And the better you are insulated, the more you prepare for it, the less it will affect you in a negative way. The more you sweat during peace, the less you bleed during war. The next thing, protecting the downside is more important than focusing on the upside. For example, it was about 4 or 5 years ago. Crypto was going crazy. The stock market was going crazy. And there was this new thing out that everybody was super excited about. They were called NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Y'all remember NFTs? Motherfuckers was just paying thousands of dollars, sometimes millions of dollars for cartoons and shit, and they didn't know it was a scam. Everybody's making money off NFTs. I knew a lot of people, a lot of influencers who put out NFTs and sold it to their audience to make money, and they made a lot of money. What do you think happened to the value of those NFTs? They're worth almost zero now. Basically, these motherfuckers ripped off their audience, and many of them, really fucked up their reputations. And a lot of the influencers didn't know though. Listen, I've been famous for a long time. Right? Relatively famous, like a J-list celebrity. You know how many people came to me saying, yo, let's do an NFT project. We can make this amount of money. And it was attractive amounts of money. But you know what I thought? Man, this shit looks like a scam to me. I don't know. It may be legit, but it looks a lot like a scam to me. And I think the downside of ripping off my audience, fucking up my reputation, is not worth the potential upside of a few extra $1 million. And you got to think about that, because where would I be now if I did that shit? And then you see it all the time, like right now. Every time crypto starts pumping, so there's a new scam goes alongside it. Right now it's meme coins. So we see people doing rug pulls on the fucking meme coins. For example, Rick Ross, he put out the Boss coin. He was talking about Boss coin. Soon as that shit went up to be worth, had like, a lot of money, he just rug pulled it and took all the Boss coin shit off his social media. I ain't got no beef with Rick Ross, He watches my videos. He left a comment on one of my Instagram posts. Would you buy some shit from Rick Ross now, knowing that? I wouldn't. I mean, we can look at the blockchain. He made like $1 million, but it was like straight scam. That's fucked up. Argentina just came out with its own meme coin, rug pulled the whole country. Do you think that's helping out their economy? Right, you gotta protect the downside. And this is just everything. So anytime I have the decision I wanna make, I wanna take a risk. Just the criteria I put it through. What's the worst that can happen? And I don't try to make it feel good. Then I say, okay, that's the worst that can happen. Can I handle it? If I can't handle it, then I'll probably just do it. If I can't handle it, then I don't do it. The next one is, people will always act in their own self-interest. Everybody's gonna act in their own self-interest. And all you have to do to get anything you want is align other people's self-interests with yours. That's all you have to do, right? So instead of looking at it in a nihilistic way, like, oh, everybody's selfish, I'm like, everybody's selfish. So all I gotta do is give them what they want, and I'll get whatever I want. It depends on how you look at it. But this is true. Even your fucking dog, if you don't feed that dog, it's gonna run away and get some food. And you should not be surprised. And in fact, you need to work with it. And sometimes it's a wake-up call. I remember a long time ago, there was this girl I liked. The day we were supposed to hang out, she's like, oh, my mom wanted me to help her do something, I can't come. So she flaked on me. And I was like, hey, no problem. It happens, right? It happens to the best of it. Even me, I know some of you guys are shocked. Yeah. And I thought, you know what? That's true or not. Moms do be needing shit sometimes. But whether that was true or not, it didn't matter. Because if I was Drake, she would have said, look, Mom, you're gonna have to figure this shit out on your own. I got fucking Drake waiting on me. Straight up. And her mom would have been like, yeah, this shit ain't that urgent where you need to be standing up Drake, girl. You need to get us out the fucking hood. Go ahead. It would have been in her best self-interest. And so I just looked at it, I just got to step my game up. I got to build myself up to the point where women will flake on their mothers for me instead of flaking on me for their mothers. That's a different level, but that level exists. Prime Drake, bitches would flake on their mother for Prime Drake. Bitches would punch their mom in the mouth for Prime Drake. So I was like, okay, I just got to step my game up. If people don't support you, or you're not getting customers, or you're not doing this, or things aren't working for you, how do you make yourself better so it's in people's best interests to fuck with you? Oh, I want to network with people. How can you build yourself up, or your product or service or whatever you have to offer? How can you build it up to the point where it's in their best interest to work with you, right? To network with you. If you want to be an international playboy, you want to have sex with a bunch of women all the time, every day, cool. I'm not making no judgments. How do you build yourself up so it's in your best self-interest for women to want to participate in that willingly, eagerly? If you want to have 1 million subscribers, right? You want to have 1 million followers. First thing I always ask them is, why should people follow you? They always stump. They can never answer that question. And I'm like, yo, until you answer that question, you're not going to be able to get the followers. If you can't even think of a reason why these motherfuckers should follow you, you think they're going to figure it out on their own? Nah, everyone is always going to act in their own self-interest. And all you have to do to get whatever you want is to align your self-interest. The next thing I wish I learned in my 20s, there is no amount of money that you cannot fuck up. I remember when I made my first million. I don't remember the exact age, but I know it's my early 30s. I had made $1 million that year. Revenue. But I looked at my own personal account and I did not have $1 million in it, right? Because I didn't understand making money and managing money are two different skill sets. And that's when I put in place a strategy called MBA accounting. I talked about it in other videos, but I started just really taking inventory of every dollar I spent. I used something called mint.com at the time. Now I use something called Monarch because Mint doesn't work anymore. But I track every dollar I make, categorize it, where it's coming from. I keep meticulous track of my finances. You know, I was coaching this other entrepreneur. You know, I had helped him make $1 million before. And he had so much money, and I'm kicking it with him. He's like, man, I'm rich now too. Oh, he'd always talk about how he's rich. Hey, now I'm rich. Then he hit me up. He sent me a bank statement, a screenshot. He had $1,000. I'm like, what the fuck happened? Right? And so I told him to come to my crib. I said, you been using mint.com? He's like, nah, yeah, I told you to do it. Like, yeah, I didn't ever do it. All right, hook up. I made him sit down. I made him hook up all his accounts to mint.com, and it can show his old transactions, right? They can go back 90 days. And we set and categorized every transaction, and we saw how much money he was blowing on bullshit. He blew that $1 million. It wasn't even like it wasn't profitable. His business was profitable. His lifestyle wasn't. He blew that shit. And he was shocked to see how much money he spent on girls, how much money he lost gambling, how much money he spent on flights, how much money he spent on designer shit. It was like, yo, man, there's no amount of money you can't fuck up. Mike Tyson, throughout his boxing career, made over $300 million. He still went bankrupt. I know a chick that he was fucking when he went bankrupt, man. He ended up living with her in her mom's house in Washington Heights, the motherfucking hood, after he blew all that money. He's back on his feet now, right? You know, because podcast and shit, you know, fighting Jake Paul and shit. He's back on his feet now. There is no amount of money you can't fuck up, right? So the key is track your spending meticulously. Track your money, get serious about it, learn accounting, because you can fuck up that money, bro. The next lesson comes from Warren Buffett. You will become like the people you are around. Whether you want to or not. It will happen involuntarily. In fact, you've already done it. You probably have a similar accent to the people who are in your hometown, home country. You probably have similar religion to the people you grew up around. You probably like a lot of similar foods. Human beings, we assimilate involuntarily to people around. And there's a lot of studies that show that too. There's one study that shows if one of your friends becomes obese, then you have a 40% chance of becoming obese. But here's the crazy part. If a friend of one of your friends, a third motherfucker that you don't even know, if he becomes obese, now you have a 20% chance of becoming obese. You don't even know that motherfucker. But let's say that person, a friend of a friend of a friend, we're talking 4 levels deep. You know that person, studies show that you have a 10% chance of becoming obese from a motherfucker you don't even know because he got fat. You don't even know his homie. So studies show that one of the best predictors of wealth, of income, is how much people's friends make. So super important, man. You're gonna ride with the winners or you're gonna lay with the losers. If your friends are out here fucking up, acting crazy, have a lot of trouble, you know, getting in trouble all the time, you probably got to disassociate yourself from them unless they ask you for your help. Of course, if someone asks you for your help and they're a friend or family member, then you can be there for them. But if they're not asking for your help and they're out here fucking up, you got to disassociate yourself, right? One of the 48 laws of power is avoid unhappy and the unlucky, right? And he talks about it's contagious, man. But the opposite is true too. And you know it is, right? Have you ever been around somebody who's happy? You become more happy, right? If a fucking happy kid runs in the room, everybody seems to light up, or a puppy runs in the room, people light up. But you've also been in a room where everything's cool, and if somebody comes in with the motherfucking stank face, all mean and angry, changes the whole energy of the room. That just happened on a small level, just the room. Imagine prolonged exposure to that shit. What does it do to you? Stay away from the unhappy and unlucky. So number 9, overconfidence is more dangerous than self-doubt. So I remember a story, you know, initially when I first started public speaking, I wasn't really nervous like everyone else. And the reason I wasn't nervous is because I used to do rap battles, like 8 Mile style rap battles when I was in college, like all up and down the East Coast, multiple times a week. Me and my boys, we would drive around anywhere where there was a rap battle or open mic, we go there and we battle. It wasn't like the way they do rap battles now. If you watch like some of those battles now, where back in the day they put on a beat and you had to do it like 8 Mile. You had to freestyle off the head, making fun of this person. That was so much easier than just talking. So I had the utmost confidence when I started public speaking because shit doesn't have to rhyme. Nobody's making fun of me at the same time. I don't have to be on beat. I can just talk. This is simple. And my first few speeches, I was just crushing it, killing it. And then I had this one speech where I had to, it was a different kind of audience. And I didn't prep because I had so much overconfidence from killing all the speeches, and they're totally bombed, man. If it wasn't such a nice crowd, I would have got booed off the stage, right? Because I didn't prepare at all. That just showed me the danger of overconfidence. In my lifetime, overconfidence has damaged me more than fear. Now I just over prepare for anything. That stops the really bad things from happening, because you can stumble, you can have a setback, but it doesn't have to be as bad if you take precautions, right? So be confident, never overconfident. Never think your shit don't stink. Never think you too good to prepare. When they talk about Steph Curry practice, he practices almost more than everyone else on the team. And that's why he's one of the best basketball players of all time, man. Next thing I wish I knew when I was 20 was, if you're not tracking, you're slacking. I had started working out when I was 16, and I made some progress. You know, you make your noob gains your first few years, but then I started to hit a plateau when I was in college. But I wasn't tracking my calories. I wasn't tracking my workouts. I was just going in the gym, working out, eating anything like you motherfuckers. And I was wondering why I wasn't making progress. And then an OG trainer, he told me, no, you got to track everything, man. You got to track all your calories. You got to track everything. Just try it for a few months. I bet you'll get more progress. And then those first few months, I made more progress than I had made the prior year. Just because if you're not tracking, you're slacking. So I've been tracking my calories in every workout I do for like 20 years. That's why I'm in better shape than all these motherfuckers, man, who are talking shit about me, right? Because they don't do the thing, right? If you start tracking your calories, all your fitness goals will be easier to accomplish. Every fitness problem you have will miraculously go away the moment you start tracking everything. But it's not just in fitness, right? I took that to every area of my life. In my business, we track all our KPIs. We track the conversion rates. We track hits to the website. We track everything. We measure our progress based off the data. So now we can make data-driven decisions. Same thing with your fitness goals, right? Same thing with any goals you have. If you're not tracking, you're slacking. You got to track everything. And if you track everything, not only will your performance improve, because now you're keeping yourself accountable, you can make decisions and changes based off data instead of just gut feelings or some bullshit like that. If you want to learn more about that, I got a free habit tracker called the Victory Vision Planner. Show you how to track your goals and anything else you want to track in your life. Your macros, your calories, how many calories you burn each day, business goals, your life goals. You can really track everything in your life with this planner. You can download it for free. It's a Notion template, and there's a video attached to it that shows you how to use it. All right, the link is in the description. The next thing I wish I knew when I was 20 is the answer is always less. A lot of times when we're trying to accomplish something, we think we need to start adding to the progress. We need to start doing more and more and more. But typically what we need to do is take things away and focus, so our efforts are more potent, right? I remember in 2019, I had several different businesses. You know, I had a keto meal prep company in New York. I had a supplement line. I was managing the businesses of a bunch of different influencers. I had my high ticket training business where I teach trainers how to start their online fitness business. And I was still doing my online personal training and all these different businesses at the time. And I thought I was doing pretty good because I was making like a few $1 million a year. But then I actually had a discussion with Alex Hermosi once. I remember it was on New Year's Day. This dude was working on New Year's Day. We got on a call to talk about some business we wanted to do together. He was like, how much money you make last year? I was like, I made about $2.5 million. You know, I'm thinking it's pretty good. You know, kid from Chicago, Southside. I thought that was pretty good. He said, yeah, I made $30 million last year. And I felt like a fucking bitch. And he did all of that with one business. So I immediately took that and I shut down the other businesses and I just focused on one main business, one main income stream. I mean, I still had investments and stuff, but those were more passive. One earned income stream. And I immediately doubled my income the following year. The answer is always less. You don't need to add stuff. You need to take stuff away. Simplify your life as much as possible. All you guys trying to have, you know, a whole roster of chicks, man, this shit is fucking up your mental bandwidth because now you got to do all this bullshit. Oh, you have too many hobbies, too many business ideas. Most of you guys aren't doing all these different businesses because you're so ambitious. You're doing them because you don't know which one's going to work and you're hedging your bets. It's a sign that you lack confidence. If you believed in one of them, you would just do that one. You wouldn't start 18 different businesses. Focus on one, go all in. Everything is hypothetical until you apply it to your own life. A lot of times we hear all these rules, or maybe we even read studies showing that this rep range works, or this food works for you, or this eating this amount of food is going to help you get build the most muscle or accomplish your goals. You got to remember there's individual variance and we're all a little bit different. Some people die if they eat a peanut, right? So when you read these studies, I'm not saying they're invalid. They never say 100% of the people in the study accomplished this thing. They just said the percentages. They said, okay, most people in this study had this, or they give you the average. But not everybody in that study had success. Some people had adverse effects, right? So all the study can do is tell you what's most likely to happen to you and help you make an educated guess. It's still hypothetical until you apply it to your own life. That goes for fitness, nutrition, and it goes for actual all business. A lot of times people say bullshit. For example, people used to always tell me, yo, Brandon, you got to be more professional. You got to stop cursing. It makes sense and it's probably statistically right. But I know for me, my fans appreciate the rawness and the relatability. So I'll curse and say all types of crazy shit. And I'll make more money because now I stand out amongst everybody who's trying to be professional and shit. Now, I'm not saying that will work for you. Everything is actually hypothetical until you apply it to your own life. Marcus Aurelius once said, everything we hear is opinion, not fact. Everything we see is perspective, not truth. You should hear what works. You should read the studies and give you a good educated guess. Until you apply it to your own life, you don't know if it's going to work. The next thing I wish I knew when I was younger was volume will solve most problems. For example, every time I'm coaching a salesperson and they say, oh man, I'm not making enough money. And I look at their close rate's not great. Maybe it's fine, but it's not great. I say, you need to get better at sales, man. And how do you get better at sales? You need more reps. So you need to do more lead gen, double your amount of sales calls than everyone else, right? And if you do that, you'll get better faster, right? Because the way you get good at anything is actually doing it more, is getting reps. Before we even talk about that, you'll make more money just by taking more calls, even if your close rate stays the same. If you double the amount of calls you take, you'll double your income with the same close rate. But it'll be more than double because you're gonna get better. You're gonna get better with each rep, and you'll get better faster because you're getting more repetitions, right? More chances at bat, right? So your close rate will go up and you're taking more calls. A lot of people, they always say work smarter, not harder. Instead of focusing on efficiency, we need to focus on maximum output. If you work harder, you'll get better faster. And more volume will solve almost every problem. Just do more, right? You want to get bigger, you probably need to eat more, you probably need to lift more, right? You want to lose weight, you probably need to diet harder, do more cardio. The next thing I wish I knew in my 20s, developing skills is the best insurance. For example, my dad told me when I was younger, he was really good at sales. He told me if you learn sales, you'll never be broke. And I took that, right? And I got really good at sales. And I remember once, man, I was in a jam, a few years ago. I just didn't pay my taxes a few years in a row. I was like, you know what? That's a problem for future branding. And then future branding had to deal with it. Now, IRS, they came knocking for that money. I was like, fuck, how do I get this money? Well, one thing I'm really good at is sales. So I just filled my calendar with sales calls and I got the money, paid off Uncle Sam, stayed out of prison. You know what I'm saying? Simple, right? And I just feel like because I developed my skill set, both in sales and marketing, if shit really hit the fan, shit went haywire, all my businesses fell apart, I had to start from nowhere. I got enough skills to just start selling for anyone. And I started building up my war chest and I'll be back to where I'm at in a few years. Skills is the best insurance. Next thing I wish I knew in my 20s, this is a big one. Don't get too high off the highs. This goes hand in hand with the overconfidence. I see it all the time. Things are going great. People, they start living the high life. It feels like it's never going to end. They start increasing their living expenses, right? They might get a bigger house, more cars, start spending money instead of saving it and investing it. Then next thing you know, when there is a downturn, they're too over leveraged. Motherfuckers start selling the cars, downsizing the cribs, putting the kids in public school because they got too high off the highs, right? So when you get successful, it's super important, is to not increase your standard of living, right? So if you saw me over the last few years, I didn't start really like balling and flexing until maybe like 5 years ago. But before that, I was making millions, but I was still living in New York, keeping my living standards relatively low. I wasn't buying Richard Milles back then, I was still putting money aside and investing it. Then when the money from the investments started paying me passively, that's when I started balling, right? My Richard Mille was made passive income from my investments. All my watches, all my luxuries are paid for income from my investments. Because you never want to feel like, shit ain't gonna end, because things can change overnight and you want to be ready for it. The next emergency is around the corner. You got to be prepared for it. The next thing I wish I knew when I was 20 is there is a time when it's okay to quit, right? People say never quit, never give up. I disagree. Sometimes it's good to quit. So for example, a lot of y'all know that I used to be signed to Sony Records as a rapper, right? I was like signed as a rapper and producer. They signed me in 2004, like right after college. A lot of it was because all of the performance I did all around, up and down the East Coast and shit. I got dropped when they merged with BMG, and I held on to that dream for mad long. You know, I had a studio in Queens at one point, and I was working with like local artists and trying to do shit, trying to make it as a producer. And a few times I thought I had a break. I remember Chris Brown recorded a bunch of songs over some of my beats. Then he beat up Rihanna. They started over with his album, and I didn't make the next album. And I kept trying that path for mad long. I probably should have quit earlier. I would have got richer faster because I kept going up against roadblocks with the music, but the fitness always came relatively easy, like making money in the fitness industry. And I started online training thinking, oh man, I'll just do this to support my music career. and it worked, right? I didn't have to get a job for a minute, and I was still trying to pursue music. And then one day I just said, man, the online training shit is making money. Why don't I just focus on that? Fuck this music shit. And one day I just made that decision, shut down the studio, ended my lease, and I went all in on online training. Boom. Immediately started making tons of money and built that in a relatively short period of time into a 7-figure business, where it's like music hadn't really made me any money. Had I fucking quit earlier, I'd have got richer faster, and I'd be way richer now. Sometimes I'm not telling you when is the good time to quit, because I don't know. You're gonna make the decision. If you have an opportunity in front of you that's really working, and the fucking universe is telling you, man, do this, not this, maybe you should do it, you know? The next thing I wish I knew when I was 20 is don't fake it till you make it. Do it till you prove it. So a lot of people get that advice, yo, fake it till you make it. Motherfuckers will tell you to make affirmations and talk to yourself in the mirror like a psycho or some shit, like you got schizophrenia. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but you can't bullshit yourself. One of my followers hit me up and said, man, my affirmations, it feels like a lie. I'm like, because it is a lie, bro. You can't bullshit yourself. Right now, however, if you start acting in accordance with the person you want to be, you start actually behaving like the man you're pretending to be instead of just pretending, then you'll start to really believe it. Socrates said, you are what you repeatedly do. So instead of faking it till you make it, do it till you prove it. Start really being it. Start living that shit, right? Instead of saying, oh man, I'm successful. Why don't you just start doing the things that successful people do? Imagine a version of yourself who accomplished all your goals. Write down his habits. Write down what his day looks like. Write down how much time he spends Call of Duty weed smoking sessions. Write down how he behaves, and then call this your list of great. And you look at that every morning, and every time you start behaving in accordance with what's on your list of great, you'll start to believe in yourself more, and you'll start to like yourself more, and you'll have more confidence. So a lot of times people lack confidence because they haven't given themselves a reason to be confident. But when you start acting in accordance to your list of great, bro, you're actually going to start to like yourself more, and you'll have confidence that's real, not a fake bravado that you're trying to put on. You'll really believe it. The next thing I wish I knew in my 20s is depression is a luxury. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, first your physiological needs, then you need safety needs, then you need love and belonging, right? This is where it starts getting emotional after you have like safety and biological, right? If you are here, this is the only place you can really be depressed, right? If you're not safe, you can't even worry about being depressed. If you can't eat food, you're more worried about survival. The fact that you are depressed signifies that you are actually in a privileged position. And I'm not trying to minimize any depression you're dealing with. It's a serious issue. Those of you know that I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 depression. Bipolar 2, that's the new shit. Motherfuckers still got that old depression, man. I got the brand new shit. Anyway, it's something I struggle with. I remember when my father killed himself, I was in danger. Like I had to support myself, my family, and everybody. I didn't have time to be depressed. Right? People was like, oh, did you mourn? I was like, man, I ain't got time to mourn. I gotta get this money. I gotta get my mama out the hood. I gotta fucking raise myself up, right? And I didn't start feeling depressed until I had my shit together, right? So depression is a luxury. I want you to reframe your depression. If you have depression or sadness, this is what I do. I realize that the fact that you can even feel depression means that you're in a good place, and you can reframe it. Focus on the things that you do have. Man, luckily I got enough food, shelter, clean water to even be depressed. Because if I didn't have that shit, I wouldn't be thinking about my emotions. You know what I'm saying? I'd be thinking about my biological needs, right? And just that it'll make you feel a little better because you reframe it. And then you want to just focus on action. Like action is the main thing that gets me out of depression every time I'm in one. You know, sometimes I still go through depressive episodes, and I do my best to work as much as possible, work through them, and then I work my way out of them. I don't need to go on betterhealth.com or none of these fancy shits that be sponsoring podcasts. I'll take some money if you motherfuckers are listening. But the truth is, man, I just work, man, and I get into action. I start acting like I'm in survival mode. And that way it changes my focus. And the next thing I wish I knew when I was in my 20s is there are multiple metrics to gauge success. Meaning, I had a mentor back in the day. His name was Kevin Hodo. He was the man, probably one of the best Facebook ads buyers. I already knew Facebook ads, but he helped me get like really good at it. He had a ton of money, great family. He was living great. In fact, he was so good, you know, he used to run the ads for Alex Hormozi's gym launch business, the business that really made him the first money. Kevin was running the ads, and Kevin taught me how to run ads. Kevin was almost like a father figure to me, man. He was an older dude, and it's just someone who, man, I had a lot of love for Kevin. He always showed me love. And, you know, he was my mentor. I paid him to be one of my mentors, right? But he definitely helped me out a lot and showed me a lot of things. And he had everything going for him. But Kevin was fat. And when COVID came, COVID loves fat people, right? And he fucking passed away, man. I was talking to him. So it's like money is not the only way to measure success. Kevin had millions of dollars, but his health was fucked up. So it didn't really matter, right? Because he's not here to enjoy that shit anymore. You know what I'm saying? And he left like pretty young children. They were in high school, college age. You know, he left his wife, man. And it's like, damn, I just wish he would have had his shit together, right? But there's something else he told me. Kevin and I had a mutual friend, and Kevin worked for him. Kevin ran his ads. He ran his ads for a lot of people. And this guy was making so much more money than me. And I was like, damn, man, he's making so much money. And Kevin probably felt almost like an envious tone. Not envy, but more like, damn, I wish I was getting money like that. And Kevin said, he pulled me aside and said, yo, Brandon, I promise you would not want his life. And he told me some things about this person. I don't want to say too much, but he's like, oh shit, right? So he sacrificed some things to get that money that I wasn't willing to sacrifice, right? And when I took that in perspective, I was like, oh, by my metrics of success, I realized I was more successful, even though he had more money. Or even Kevin had more money than me, but I'm alive. You know what I'm saying? So you got to define your own metrics for success, right? There's always somebody who's going to be more handsome than you or have more money than you. And I'm not saying you don't make yourself feel better about it, right? Because sometimes people say money's not everything. Yeah, asshole. Fucking oxygen is not everything, but you need it to survive, right? You need to have it in abundance to survive. You want so much oxygen that you don't have to think about it, right? Money's the same way. I'm not saying you make yourself feel better about not working at capacity. You want to define your metrics for success, what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're not willing to sacrifice, and then judge yourself towards that. I'm not saying, oh man, he's got money, but he's fucking this or he's that, right? I'm not saying you make yourself feel better or pacify yourself like a bitch. I'm saying you really have to figure out what your metrics are and only judge yourself against that, and don't judge yourself against other people's metrics of success. I hope that makes sense. The next thing I wish I knew when I was 20 is that in the long run, most things don't matter. What I mean by that is I see people tripping and complaining about little shit all the time. Fucking traffic, politics, bunch of other shit, right? And most of this shit, we won't even remember 5 years from now, right? So one thing I try to think about, will I remember this 5 years from now? Will I care about this 5 years from now? And this is like missing a flight, fucking being in traffic. Most of the shit that people spaz out over doesn't matter. And especially if you take a long-term view of it, it doesn't matter. For example, if we look at the stock market, what you can see is there's dips and valleys. But when we take a long-term view, we see that it's up and to the right, you know? So all the little dips, man, if you was tripping over this, you was wilding. If you trip, even the big dips, you didn't have to trip over it. You still have been in good shape. You want to really focus long-term. And that's really difficult for young people because you ain't been alive long. The amount of time you've been alive, you don't even remember most of it. Like you don't remember like the first few years, right? So it's difficult because you don't have a reference point of time. But just know most things won't matter 5 years from now. And just ask yourself, will I give a fuck about this 5 years from now? This bitch who dumped me, this person who said this thing to me, you know, all the bullshit. Most of that shit won't matter, man. So you wasting your mental energy on bullshit. Just focus on 5 years from now, man. The next thing I wish I knew when I was 20 is you can actually control other people more than you think. And I learned this in sales when I got good at sales. You ever see a happy child or a puppy walk into a room and everybody lights up? That person is kind of in control of their emotional states. The decisions people make are based off the emotion they feel at the time they make that decision. So if you're in a happy state, you're gonna make a different decision than if you're in rage. Some of y'all wouldn't have been born if your dad wasn't really horny. You know what I'm saying? If he was like in a logical state, he wouldn't have fucked that ugly chick who gave birth to you. Therefore, if you control people's emotions, you can control their decision making. I learned this in sales, right? Sometimes people will be scared to make a decision, and I can do things to lighten the mood, maybe tell jokes, or just control my emotions, control my mannerisms, and then their emotional state changes, and then a lot of times they'll be in a better position to buy. So I think about this all the time, controlling my emotional state, because your emotional state will affect the emotional states of everyone around you. I tell my sales team, I was like, yo, you got to be head of state. If they get all worried or scared or anxious, you got to stay calm. It's just like when you on a motherfucking airplane and the shit starts going crazy, turbulence. I don't know about y'all, but I look at the plane waitress. And if the plane waitress is chilling, going about her business, then I'm like, all right, everything's probably cool. She controlled my state. However, once I was on a flight to London, we were over the ocean and the fucking shit starts going super crazy. Plane waitress is going down the aisle and she yells at another plane. I looked to see if she's chilling. She looked at another plane where she said, get down. And they both jumped raw to the floor. I'm like, oh, fuck, it's over. And then I started panicking more. You know what I'm saying? Spoiler alert. I lived through it. It's like that in your life. So be the head of state, right? When you go in the room, be the person who uplifts everyone's state. Be the person who always controls the state of people around you, or they'll control you. Mirror neurons. This is why somebody yawns, you'll yawn. Micro expressions and tonality, it affects our state as well. So you need to be head of state. Now, the next thing I wish I knew when I was 20 is you can actually train people, much like you train an animal or a pet. A long time ago, I read a book called Don't Shoot the Dog. And it was just really about training humans. But it was written by an animal trainer. And he talked about how there's some animals that only respond to positive reinforcement. That's all they respond to, right? Like dolphins was an example. You can't whip a dolphin like you can with a tiger, because as of now, whips don't work underwater. I'm sure Elon is working on the way to whip a dolphin. So what they do is they feed that dolphin. When they catch the dolphin doing something right, they give that motherfucker a treat. They keep doing it. Next thing you know, the motherfuckers jumping through hoops, going upside down, doing all types of shit. And you can actually train people like that, but you can also negatively train them too, right? If you negatively reinforce what they do. For example, my mom, she says I don't call her enough. When I do call her, what's the first thing she does? Right? She says, oh, you never call. Right? I actually did the thing she wanted me to do, and she negatively reinforced me. What do you think that makes me want to call her more or less? Now if she was like, yo, oh my God, I'm so glad you called, and she was happy and excited, that would be positive reinforcement, and I'd probably be more likely to call her more frequently. That makes sense? So when you catch people around you doing something that you want them to do more of, you need to positively reinforce them the way you do with a dolphin. And then what you notice, they'll start doing it more. You get what I'm saying? You can actually train people with just positive reinforcement. You don't even have to do negative reinforcement as much, right? Obviously, some egregious, you might have to negatively reinforce it. You can't do positive reinforcement too much. You can do negative reinforcement too much. We learned that from Chris Brown. Too much negative reinforcement is going to end up bad for the reinforcer. What I say, catch people doing right. This is employees, children, and anyone around you. You catch them doing something right, and then you positively reinforce it, right? And then on a subconscious level, they'll want to do it more. Next thing I wish I knew when I was 20 is it's okay for people to think you're crazy. When I was really working to come up, make money, I was working so much, and I was so obsessed with success. People were telling me, man, yo, you need to live a little, you need to relax, you need to chill, or like you're tripping, you're going too hard. And for a second, I thought there was something wrong with me. And I read a lot. So one of the books I had read around that time was Relentless by Tim Grover. And Tim Grover had trained Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade and a number of other NBA superstars, right? He wasn't talking about the training or what they do. He's talking about their mindset. Like being obsessed with success is okay. And I read that book and I was like, you know what? I don't give a fuck if these people say I'm crazy. It looks like I'm on the right path after reading that book. And I said, fuck it, I'm going all out. And it worked out well for me. In fact, impacted me so much, I wrote Relentless tattoo on my arm. Kind of set me free. It allowed me to take my foot off the brakes. So don't worry about if regular people think you're crazy, man. If you want extreme success, it's got to come from extreme actions. The next thing I wish I knew when I was 20 was that consistency trumps talent every time. There might be someone who's better than you at something, or they seem to have some advantages you don't have, and you have to work harder than them. Then just work harder than them. It may be more difficult than you. That's okay. Just fucking do it. You know, a lot of videos people say, oh man, this guy doesn't have this, or this guy doesn't have 30 kids like me. And it's like, yo, listen, man, that's the position you're in. If you want the same results, you're gonna have to work. It's gonna be more difficult for you. You're gonna have to work harder. And just work harder, right? Don't complain about it. I wasn't dealt no good ass hand, born in Southside Chicago, the black ghetto. My dad blew his brains out. I had to work harder than some people I know who were like born rich. You don't fucking cry about it. You just work harder than them. But if you are consistent, I'm telling you, you will win. Consistency is undefeated. The advantages they have has nothing to do with your success or your results. The next thing I wish I knew when I was 20, you need to set goals that are impossible for the current version of yourself. So a lot of times when people set goals, they set goals that are realistic. They will set goals that they are currently able to accomplish. The problem with that is if this is what you can accomplish, then you'll set goals here. But if you set goals outside of what you can currently accomplish, what does that mean? That means you have to grow. You have to develop more skills. You have to develop more talents. You have to study more. You become a better person because now you have to grow into the goal. It's kind of like a house plant. If you put a plant in a pot, it will only grow as much as the pot will let it, right? Because the roots can't expand. But when you set goals that are bigger than what you can currently accomplish, what you're gonna do is you have to get a bigger fucking pot. And that's what you do. You have to become a better person. So when I set my goals, there's so much stuff I had to learn. I had to learn marketing. I had to learn sales. I had to learn customer service. Then I set even bigger goals when I started my business, and I had to start hiring people. So now I had to learn leadership. I had to learn management. I had to learn HR. Now I got to learn about taxes. Like, you know, it forced me to become a more well-rounded, more skilled individual. But if you don't have any reason to learn these skills or develop these talents, then you won't. Achieving the goal is actually personal development as well. Next thing I wish I knew in my 20s was you got to prioritize health. So I probably sacrificed some health stuff in my early 20s. And then I realized it was slowing me down. So I said, you know what? Even though I'm working all these jobs, I got to get enough sleep. I got to get at least 7 hours of sleep. And that was appropriate for me at the time. And then what happens was when I was working, I actually worked better because my mind was clear and I had more energy and my mood was better. Easiest way to slip into depression is to be sleepy. The lack of sleep will affect your mood. It causes a variety of psychiatric problems, right? If you read the book, Why We Sleep, he worked at Stanford and he talked about how a lot of psychiatric disorders congruence with lack of sleep, and more sleep actually help those patients way more, right? Your neurochemicals are more balanced when you sleep. Norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, right? And that's what emotions are made of. Emotions, they're all in your head, right? They're just different combinations of neurochemicals. Lack of sleep will throw them all out of whack. Prioritize health, especially sleep. You'll have more energy, you'll accomplish more. The next thing I wish I knew in my 20s was take calculated risks. Earlier I said overconfidence is dangerous, but being a bitch is dangerous too. So you want to take the risk, but you don't want to be overconfident. My risk-taking formula looks like this. If I do this, what's the worst that can happen? And I don't try to make myself feel better. I think about what's the absolute worst. Like if everything went wrong, what would that look like? Then I think to myself, can I handle it? If I can handle it, then all right, let's do it. If I can't handle it, all right, we don't do that. So it's super calculated. And then I take it a step further. If I said I can do it, then I say, okay, what can I do to prevent the likelihood of the worst case scenario happening? Then I put those things into effect. Then I think, if it happened anyway, what can I do to mitigate its effects, right? So now it's like super calculated with the risks. For example, this is a question people always ask me: when should I quit my job, focus on my business full time? Well, for me, I was super calculated about it. I went through that whole protocol. I said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till my business is making as much as my jobs. Boom. That mitigated, you know, the likelihood of the worst thing happening, me being poor and broke again, homeless, right? That mitigated that. The next level, when I said, okay, if the worst did still happen, what can I do to prevent it from really damaging? So I said, okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna also make sure I have 6 months of expenses saved, right? So I got 2 safety nets, right? One safety net to prevent the worst happening. And then even if the worst did happen, I had a soft place to land and I got 6 months to get my shit together and not be homeless. It was a risk, but it was a super calculated risk. And that's what I tell everyone to do, man. Wait till you have your business is making as much money as your regular job and have 6 months of savings. Take risks, but make sure to calculate. All right, so the number 28 lesson I wish I learned in my 20s, your emotions are your responsibility. Earlier, we talked about how you can impact other people's emotions, and we talked about how the decisions people make are based off the emotions they feel when they're making the decision. Somebody wants something really bad, they might steal something, right? Because they feel some sort of emotion. Or somebody may be really angry and they do or say something they wouldn't have said if they were in a calmer state. So even though other people and outside events can have the ability to impact your emotions, you cannot blame your emotions or your behavior on others, no matter what. You have to take responsibility for your own emotions. So a lot of times people say shit to me like, man, you can work all hard, but money won't make you happy. And I said, who the fuck was talking about being happy? Being happy and financial success are 2 different fucking subjects. They don't have nothing to do with each other. I've seen poor people who are happy. I've seen rich people who are sad, and vice versa. I've seen homeless people dance in the street. I saw a homeless nigga take off his shoes on Queens Boulevard and start dancing in the middle of the street, right? He was super happy. I know rich people who killed themselves. I know poor people who killed themselves. Money's job is not to make you happy. Money's job is to be exchanged for goods and services. That's all money can do. Your emotions are your responsibility, not an inanimate object like money, dipshit. It's not money's job to make you happy. Hey, it's not anyone's job to make you happy. It's not anything's job to make you happy. You can be happy under any circumstances, you know, within reason. Emotions are not even real. And when I say real, they're like the Webster definition of real. Emotions only happen in your fucking head. It's literally just imagination. All an emotion is happiness, sadness, anger, fear. They're just different combinations of neurotransmitters, neurochemicals going off your brain. These chemicals include, but are not limited to, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, norepinephrine. These different combinations of neurochemicals in your brain are what emotions are. Why would you give someone else the power to control what happens in your brain? Why would you give outside circumstances or someone else the ability to control what's going on in your brain? Yeah, money won't make you happy. Nothing should make you happy or make you sad. You need to learn how to control your own emotions regardless of circumstances, within reason, right? Motherfuckers get shot, you get your arm chopped off, your fucking best friend gets kidnapped. Yeah, you're gonna feel an emotion. Reserve that for like big events like that. Right? Not someone cut you off in traffic. Not I missed my plane. My team lost the fucking game. Don't let all the fucking bullshit control your emotions. You have to be stoic, right? You have to be in control of your emotions. The more you can learn how to separate your emotions from your circumstances, the better you'll be. Because what's the alternative? The alternative is that you let everyone else and everything else control your emotions, and now you're not in control. You're literally not in control of yourself, because you have to remember the decisions people make are based off the emotions they feel when they make the decision. I got some friends who are doing life in prison, right? They killed some people. They were feeling an emotion of anger, rage, and they pulled out the blick and got the blasting, right? Had they been in a different mental state, they would have made a different decision. They'd still be free men. They'd be hanging out with their kids right now. You get what I'm saying? Like, you can't let other people control your emotions, because to a certain extent, they'll control your decisions. And what you definitely can't do is say, I did this because he made me feel this way. I behaved like this because she made me feel this way, or he made me feel this way. It's like, that's soft as fuck. You need to be in control of your own emotions. Otherwise, you're not in control of your life. Another thing I wish I knew when I was in my 20s is you're not responsible for other people's emotions. Motherfuckers will always try to say, oh, you made me feel like this and that's why I behaved like that, or you did this or you didn't do that. I'm not telling you not to give a fuck about other people, but I'm telling you don't let them scapegoat you, right? It's like, no. You got to take responsibility for your emotions. If you made a mistake, apologize for it, try to make it right. But sometimes you just do what you think is right. People feel a certain way about it. If you feel like you did was right and they try to fucking make you feel guilty because you made it feel the way, fuck them. So I had a mentor, and this dude was older than me. He was a mentor, good dude. He was having a birthday party, and it was in DC, a big birthday party, right? He's like, yo, you got to come through with a birthday party. I was living in New York at the time, and I was like, yo, I can't make it, man. I got to work. This is back when I was working multiple jobs. When I had 4 jobs, I was working 80 hours a week, to try to take care of my family. My father had just recently killed himself. I'm taking care of my family. And I was like, nah, man, I got to work. I can't get out of work. You know what I'm saying? Even if I could, I wouldn't, right? I got to work. I got responsibilities, but happy birthday, homie. And this motherfucker was like super mad at me for not coming to his birthday party. And I was like, what kind of girl shit is this? As you may have guessed, he's a homosexual. He really tried to make me feel guilty about it. Man, as much as I've helped you and you couldn't even show up for my birthday party. And I was like, yeah, I don't need this shit. And I just never talked to him again. I was like, I just don't need this shit. Yeah, I'm not responsible for your own emotions. I got shit to do. Also, I would have been hurting myself and my family by telling my boss, hey man, fuck what you talking about. I know I need this job to take care of my family, but I got to go to a gay birthday party, right? I would have put myself and my family in a bad situation. And he didn't realize or care about this. All he says is just how bad I am and how I made him feel. And I was like, yo, listen, I'm not responsible for your emotions, playboy. I'm out, I have 2 sisters, right? And my older sister, she yelled at me once for something. She wasn't even correct, right? She was made some assumption and she was like yelling at me. And I was like, oh, no. I don't need this. First of all, she was wrong, right? So I couldn't have been responsible for her emotions because everything I did was wrong, right? And she found out she was wrong and she was still like, for whatever reason, she was still mad. I was like, yeah, that's not my responsibility. You can't take responsibility for other people's emotions because most people have very little control over their emotions. That brings me to number 30. You can control your emotions. So you're not responsible for other people's emotions. You have to be responsible for yours. So how do you do that? How do you control your emotions? There's 3 ways to control your emotions. One is with your environment. If you go to a different place, different location, like for example, if you're on the beach, you're probably going to feel different than if you're in a war zone. Or a more subtle example is you ever like clean up your room or your house and then you just feel a little better in there? Your environment can affect your emotions, but not even just your geographic location environment, but also the people you're around. Right? Emotions are contagious. And as much as you want to do your best to let outside events or people affect your emotions, it's easier if you cultivate your circle better. And there's studies to back this up, tons of studies to back up that emotions can be contagious. So you got to make sure if anybody's bringing negativity around you, fuck them. I have a very low tolerance for the bullshit. You come around me with the bullshit, you gotta go. The next way to control your emotions is your physiology, the way you move, the way you hold yourself. You see somebody who's depressed, what they look like? A bitch. Hey, but if you do this long enough, you'll start feeling the emotions, right? So motion creates emotion, and there's studies to back this up. The way you hold your body, or the way you walk, even the tonality of your voice, not only is it a reflection of your emotions, but it also controls your emotions. If you start laughing as much as possible, you will start to feel happy, even if it's fake laugh at first. If you go to the gym, you're gonna feel better. I keep a trampoline on my balcony. If I really don't feel good, it's time to get on the trampoline. Back in my office in New York, when I didn't like the energy in the office, when we all worked together, I was like, all right, everybody stop. You got to get on the trampoline because you can't smile unless you on a trampoline, man. So motion creates emotion. Watch how you carry yourself, how you talk. If you start to behave in a certain way, as if you had the emotion, you will start to feel that way. And the most important way to control your emotion is focus. Whatever you focus on, you're going to feel, whether it's real or not. If you got a pet right now, imagine your pet walks into the room slowly though, like you could tell something ain't right. And he looks at you from the ground, he's shaking a little bit, he goes, and then crawls over and start having a seizure, right? All right, now stop imagining. His pet is fine. It was pretend. It was make believe. Some of y'all got sad just thinking about it. It wasn't even real. Whatever you focus on, you're gonna feel, even if it's not real. There's something you wanna buy, but there's not enough money. Instead of saying, yo, I ain't got enough money, say, yo, I need to get more money, right? Because one is gonna make you feel different. You're like, man, well, I ain't got the money for that. You're gonna feel like a bitch. But if you say, I need to get more money, it's the same thing, but the focus is different. Instead of focus on the lack, it's focus on what the fuck you gonna do about it. It's like, oh man, I wanna build my following. Man, I ain't got enough followers. Like, no, I need to get more followers. One sounds like a motherfucker waving his white flag, like a bitch. The other one sounds like a motherfucker who's ready to go. Who would you bet on? The motherfucker say, oh man, I ain't got enough. Or the motherfucker says, yo, I gotta find a way to get enough. That change of focus, of perception, will change how you feel. And just anything you think about. Think about the positive things. Think about the good things. Think about the things you have instead of the things you lack. Confidence comes from competence. A lot of times people will tell you, man, just be confident. Yeah, that's dumb advice, right? Because if you are confident in something that you don't have skills in it, right? Like that's like schizophrenic, right? That's like crazy shit, you know? Like I never did no plumbing. I never plumbed nothing. I ain't a Mario brother, so why should I have confidence in doing my own plumbing? I shouldn't. If I had confidence that I could do plumbing, and I've never even seen a wrench in person, use wrenches to plumb shit, right? I don't know, maybe. That's how much I know about plumbing. I don't even know what the tools are to use to plumb. But if I had confidence in my plumbing abilities, that would be fucking crazy. Motherfucker, I don't even look under a sink in years. I don't know shit about it. Why should I have confidence in it? But let's say my daddy was a plumber and his daddy was a plumber. He used to take me on plumbing jobs with me when I was a kid, and we used to plumb together, and you have to like use his plumbing tools. I had to hand him his plumbing tools when he was plumbing shit. And then I went to plumbing school, valedictorian of plumbing school, man. And I had all this fucking competence. Then it would make a lot of sense for me to be confident in that regard. But the reason most of you guys don't have an overall confidence in yourself is because you haven't shown yourself to be competent in anything, right? You're breaking promises that you make to yourself every day. You're never doing the stuff that you say you're going to do. You're never following the plans. You say you're going to do a diet, you don't do it. You say you're going to start working out, you don't do it, right? You say you're going to start accomplishing these goals and working on them, but you don't do it. You are showing yourself incompetence. You have displayed incompetence, so why should you be confident in yourself? But once you start keeping the promises you make to yourself day in and day out, you start building a track record of it. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, a track record of you hitting your goals, building habits that will serve you and what you're trying to accomplish. Then what happens is you have a track record. You be like, yeah, I can do this. Well, if I say I'm gonna do something, I do it. You start to believe in yourself, and that gives you a kind of confidence you can't fake. You won't even have to tell anybody about it. They'll know it when they see it. They'll feel it. They'll feel the energy. That's why it's so important to start tracking your habits and tracking your goals. In the description, I have something called the Victory Vision Planner, right? And in there's a habit tracker where you can start tracking your habits. You can set up whatever habits you want, and you can start tracking them, right? And you can plan out your goals, right? And you can start tracking your progress in it. And there's a video in there that explains how to use it. And the beauty of that is once you start having a record of you displaying competence, you know, then you'll start to really believe in yourself in a different kind of way, man. You really start to have more confidence in yourself. The 31st thing I wish I knew when I was 20 was protect your energy at all costs and don't waste it on negativity. There's been a lot of times in my life where there's something I was working on and I got distracted by some sort of negativity. Either somebody brought some drama in my life or somebody said or did something, took me off my path. Because either I'm engaging with them or I'm spinning the block on these motherfuckers, or I'm just thinking about it. At worst, I'm thinking about what happened. It's super important that you protect your energy because remember, the decisions people make are based off the emotions they feel at the time they make the decisions. So if I'm in some sort of bad mood because of some negative energy, I'm liable to make bad decisions under those circumstances. For example, let's say you're a dad and what you want to do is you want to be a good father to your children or some shit. These are your kids. So you got to take action to accomplish this, right? You have to do something. So let's say your action is you want to spend time with your kids. But if you are in a bad mood when you take the action, you think those kids are going to have a good experience? You might fuck around and do more harm than good under those circumstances, right? But if you're in a good mood when you're spending time with your kids, that's going to be a better experience for you and the children. That was just a simple example that everyone can understand. It's like that with everything, right? If you have to go to work, right? If you're in a bad mood while you're working, your action won't be as effective. You ever have to work with somebody who's in a bad mood, who's all pissed off, right? They're not a pleasure to work with. They're not bringing up the morale of the team. But if somebody who's in a good mood, they bring the whole team's morale up. That can be you. It's important for you to protect your energy, right? For this example with the kids, if the dad's all mean, right, he's gonna put the kids in a bad mood. Now they crying and shit, but if he's in a good mood, picking kids up, throwing them in the air, having fun with the kids, no drizzy, then the kids are gonna be in a good mood because energies are contagious. So that's why you gotta protect your energy and stay away from negativity, even if it's family. I don't care who it is. One of the 48 laws of power is stay away from the unhappy and unlucky. I don't care who it is. The next thing I wish I knew when I was in my 20s is the importance of building a strong personal brand. In my 20s, there was no such thing as a personal brand. The internet hadn't came out yet. There was no social media really, except for the Facebook was just about to start. There was MySpace. There was something called Black Planet, but that was just for, finding black bitches to have sex with. That's all that was for. And it was an effective strategy in the early 2000s, I'm gonna be honest with you. Personal brand will take it to the next level. And we've seen this on massive scales. For example, we've seen people become billionaires off the strength of their personal brands. For example, Kylie Jenner, right? She became one of the most followed people on the internet, and then she came out with her makeup brand and she became a billionaire. Same with Kim Kardashian, members of the family who became billionaires just off the strength of their personal brand, not even necessarily having a talent. And this is something new. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, because building your personal brand is the talent. I've known so many people who have used their personal brand to make millions and millions of dollars. In fact, I'm one of them. In fact, I'm doing it now. So when you want to get good at something, learn something, and then start teaching it or using social media to help people accomplish their goals, you start building your personal brand. You can build a business off of that. I didn't know that when I was 20. I would have started this earlier if I knew this was going to happen. It's the new business card. Your Instagram or your YouTube page is better than a business card. And when people want to find out about you, even if you're not trying to be an influencer, when people want to find out about you, they're going to Google you. What's going to come up? Your Instagram. It's your new calling card, and you should take it seriously. The days of I don't have a social media, those days are over. Right now, if you don't have a social media, it's like, why? You're a weirdo. You're strange. It's kind of like in the early 2000s when people who said, oh man, I don't have an email. I don't do email. Those people were weird. That's what it's like with Instagram now. The next thing I wish I knew, you don't get what you want, you get what you have to have. You won't rise to your ambitions, you're gonna fall to your standards. So sometimes people ask me, Brandon, how can you track your macros every day and make sure you work out every day? Like, how do you stay so consistent? Because it's a standard. It's not an idea. It's not something I want to do. It's a standard. That would be like me asking you, hey, how do you make sure you bathe every day or you brush your teeth every day? I know that this resonates with most of you. The stinkiest among you won't know what I'm talking about. But most of you have the standard that you're gonna bathe every day. You're gonna take care of your dental hygiene as well. So there's a difference between a good idea and a standard. But the problem is an ambition is different than a standard. And a standard is bathing, brushing your teeth, wearing clean clothes, feeding your pets, feeding your kids. And ambition is something like, oh, that's just what I want to do. This is just a good idea. I should start working out every day, right? That's why I don't like when people say the word try. And they say, oh man, I'm trying to post every day on social media. You fucking trying? You a try baby? When you say try, that's how I know it's not a standard. And that's how I know you're probably going to fail. Because you don't try to feed your kids every day. You feed your kids every day. You don't try to walk your dog every day. You walk him every day so this motherfucker don't shit on the bed. You don't try to brush your teeth every day. You brush your teeth every day, right? You're not a try baby when it comes to those things. But the other stuff, when you start saying try, I know it's not a standard. And I know the likelihood of you accomplishing that is very, very slim. Because we won't rise to our ambitions, we will fall to our standards. Whatever our standards are, we will do the things that are really standard. Clean clothes, clean house, if that's the standard for you. So the key is to be consistent or to accomplish your goals is to change your ambitions into standards. We don't want to raise our ambitions. We want to raise our standards. We don't want to raise the ceiling. We want to raise the floor, like how low we would go. So when people say, man, I'm trying to make 10K a month, you're probably not going to do that. You need to set a standard that you will not accept less than 10K a month. And that's going to be different. You're going to hit that with a different sort of intensity because it'll be a standard. You will do what it takes. So when people start to ask you, hey man, how do you work so hard? How do you stay consistent? How do you do this? You just say, oh, it's a standard. I raised my standards. I no longer accept less from myself. Instead of trying to see what I can get away with, now I want to see how far I can push myself. Now I want to see what I'm made of instead of seeing what I can get away with. And that's what will change everything. Next thing I wish I knew when I was in my 20s is to be demanding of yourself, yet tolerant of others. You see this with a lot of young guys. They start getting into personal development or working out or anything. They start getting into anything and they immediately want to start proselytizing and teaching this shit to everyone. And they want to start holding everyone they meet to these new standards they have. They want their girlfriends to work out. How do I get my girlfriend to go work out? How do I get my girlfriend to start eating right? How do I get my friends to do all this shit? You don't. I don't give a fuck what my girlfriend eats, you know? She's an adult. She can make her own decisions. I'm tolerant of her beliefs and her dietary preferences or her life choices as long as they don't conflict with, my moralities or my standards. But I'm demanding of myself and I'm tolerant with others. So I might be with people and they're eating candy and cake and I don't say nothing. I'm just chilling. I'm not telling them, oh, you shouldn't eat that. You shouldn't do that. I'm not trying to scold them. I'm not trying to tell people why they should do stuff. But a lot of times you guys do this. You're trying to convert strangers when you first get into something because you're super excited about it. You're the guy who always wants to talk about reps and sets with everybody you meet. Yeah, don't do that. Everyone hates that guy. Let everybody be themselves unless they ask you for help. If they ask you for help, that's different. But let everybody be themselves, but you got to be super demanding of yourself and just let everybody live the way they want to live. I might make a joke that one time I saw Nima eating candy, but that was just a joke. Like I didn't really give a fuck. I'm not checking. Yo, Nima, what's your macros today, man? What's your macro? Let me see. I don't really care. Like I might say something funny, but it's not really care. Like my girl, she might just bust out a Snickers in the middle of the day. I wouldn't put that in my body, but she does all types of stuff I wouldn't do. You know what I'm saying? I don't suck dick either, right? So like I cannot hold her to my standards. So let other people live the life that they feel is like appropriate for them. It's not your job to judge them. And their standards and goals aren't the same as yours. And you shouldn't hold people to your own standards, but you should definitely hold yourself to your standards. Number 35, being too good at negotiating can be a bad thing. So I got really good at sales and negotiation over the course of my life. My dad was a salesman. He taught me a lot. I've been doing sales in one form or another since I was a kid. I got really good at sales and negotiating as well. The problem is you can get too good at it because we were working with this other company and we were working them on a project. I negotiated with them, but I got really good and it became like a game to me. So I was making sure I got the best deal possible for me and my team. And I did. Problem was they were left with not enough for them to be excited or incentivized to work hard. So I got what I want in the short term, but not in the long term. Because in the long term, I wanted them to work hard and be super focused on the goal. I negotiated their stake in the project to be so little that their performance was lackluster and they didn't care. And the project actually failed. And I believe it was my fault because they didn't have enough incentive anymore. So now when I negotiate, I make sure when I'm doing something with someone, if we're doing a partnership, it has to be a win-win. And sometimes I make sure they get more. Sometimes I negotiate in a way where I may overdo it or overpay them if I need them to do a lot more work than me, or if I need them to be locked in, because I want them to work hard and I want them to be incentivized. So don't focus on getting the best deal for you. Think about the best deal for everyone and it'll work out better for everyone. Number 36, be kind to everyone because you never know who they will become. I remember I was at Ty Lopez's house. This is a long time ago when he was first doing before the Me and My Garage commercial, right? I met Ty and he had a team there and there was this dude there. And I was like super cool with him, but he was like working for Ty. He was like one of his assistants or salespeople or something, but he was like a lackey for lack of a better term, right? He was somebody who was just working there, but I've always made sure I'm cool with, I be cool with everyone. I'm talking about fucking janitors. I'm nice to waiters. I'm nice to motherfucking the cameraman when I'm working with other people, literally everyone, because you never know what they're gonna become. And I remember this dude from Australia, he was like working for Ty, but I was super cool with him. He asked me questions when we started talking. I was super kind and all that. I was cool with him. Next thing I know, this dude started $1 million company with what he learned from Ty. And we became cool after that. Now, I just saw him a few months ago and his company is making $1 million a month. He went from being Ty's lackey to now he has a company making $1 million a month, right? You never know who people are going to become, man. And when I was talking to him, he gave me some advice. Now imagine if I just dismissive of him, 10 years ago when I met him, or I ain't give him the time of day, or I was like big time this motherfucker, right? I didn't know he was going to do that. I just go out of my way to be kind to everyone. Because here's the opposite. I remember this girl I knew. The year was 2003. Jamie Foxx was in the club, at a club in DC called Dream. For whatever reason, he had on fur pants. And this girl I know, she was with her friends, and her friend wanted a picture with Jamie Foxx, and he was like kind of mean to them and rude to them. And I get it, man. Sometimes you don't want to deal with that shit, I guess, right? Till this day, that whole group of friends, they won't listen to a Jamie Foxx song. They won't watch a Jamie Foxx movie, and they'll tell everybody who will listen about how Jamie Foxx was addicted to them. I'm telling y'all now about a 20-year-old Jamie Foxx being a dick story, right? Now, again, it's some hoes who said it, so take that with a grain of salt, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, your reputation precedes itself, right? Jamie Foxx didn't know I'd be on a YouTube channel with 1 million subscribers telling people that he was a dick to some girls in 2003. The next thing I wish I knew when I was 20 is, help your friends accomplish their goals. A lot of times people compete with their friends. They want to outdo their friends, or they get jealous of their friends. I want my friends to do better than me. If they're trying to accomplish something that I want to accomplish, I want them to do better than me for multiple reasons. One, studies show that one of the main indicators of a person's net worth is the net worth of their friends. So if your friends start making money, odds are you'll start making more money too, because you're just around that energy and that environment. But also you'll learn stuff. So I remember me and my boy Jeremy was both working on this thing. I don't want to tell you what it is, but we were both working on this thing to make some money. But Jeremy had started making progress way faster than me, like super fast. And I was encouraging him every day because he was like my Sherpa. As we were trying to climb this mountain, he went up there the hard way, pause, and then figured it out. So now when it was my turn to climb the mountain, I didn't have to make all the mistakes Jeremy made. I was able to get there way easier because Jeremy went there. So I was helping him out, whatever he was trying to accomplish, because I was learning from his experience. Experience is the best teacher, but it doesn't have to be your experience. It cost me way less to accomplish the same goal with less pain because I helped Jeremy do it. And another thing, just your friends, if your friends are really succeeding, it's another form of insurance. I know if shit hits the fan and I go out of business, I can just hit up one of my boys. Hey man, let me do something for you, pause. Let me run your ad campaign, or let me join your sales team. Let me run your sales team. Because if my friends are super rich, it'll be easier for me to land on my feet. In the song Feeling It by Jay-Z, he said, if every nigga in your clique is rich, your clique is rugged. No one can fall because everyone will be each other's crutches. You know what I'm saying? So you want your friends to succeed, and you should encourage it and help them at any chance you get. It's the best insurance you can have, is rich friends that you've helped get rich. The next thing I wish I knew when I was 20s is, it's a cultivated attitude I like to call grateful dissatisfaction. So I'm super grateful for everything I have. And I think about it all the time. So I think, man, fuck, I'm from the south side of Chicago, man. And I made it to where I'm at. But I'm not satisfied. I still want way more, right? So I'm not satisfied, but I'm also super grateful, right? You want to find a sweet spot in there. You don't want to get complacent, but you also don't want to take for granted what you have. I just want you to think about, who does God want to bless? You think he wants to bless the guy who's not appreciating the things he has, not appreciating the good things in his life? Or do you think God wants to bless the person he's already given some blessings to? Imagine you give your nephew a toy or something, like this Iron Man toy. Let's say you give your nephew or someone in your family this Iron Man toy, and he's like, Iron Man, yeah, all right, whatever, man. I fucks with Batman. And he wasn't grateful. How many more toys you gonna give that motherfucker? However, if he was like, even if it was some bullshit, he's like, Iron Man, and he got like crazy, mama, look, I got me, yo, you got that, right? You're gonna be excited to give him something else, to give him some more toys, give him some more gifts. How you think God look at you when you don't appreciate the stuff you do have, right? You got running water when some motherfuckers is drinking out of puddles and shit. Some motherfuckers, you got a roof over your head when there's motherfuckers who live in fucking tin houses and shit. You know what I'm saying? You was born here in America, maybe. Nima had to immigrate here from the sand. I imagine you got here on some sort of magic carpet. I imagine that was one of your wishes when you found the genie. That's how I imagine. Those are only Iranian stories I know. But you really have to be grateful for everything you have, man. But also, it's okay to want more. The thing I wish I knew in my 20s is that emotions are not real. Emotions are not real. They're literally all in your head. Emotions are nothing but different combinations of neurochemicals that go off in your head: dopamine, oxytocin, norepinephrine, among others, right? These different combinations of neurochemicals are all that emotion is, right? This is literally all in your head. They do affect how you feel and your decisions. You have to control your emotions, but it really, if you just remember, hey, this is not real. It's not really happening. It's literally all in my head. It makes it easier for you to control it and to change it. Last thing I wish I knew when I was in my 20s is the importance of studying. You have to study way more. Like Warren Buffett still reads for hours a day. Bill Gates still reads for hours a day, and they're some of the richest people in the world. Elon Musk, he's the richest man in the world at the time of this recording. He talks about how he read as much as possible when he was younger. You never want to feel like you got it. Like people will say, man, did you read all these books? Shit, man, I read way more books than this. That's not even counting my Kindle, bro. Or I have twice as many books as this in storage. Because when I moved to Miami, I left some more in storage, right? You want to keep studying, keep always studying, and then new shit is happening. So study the new shit, stay on top of trends, never get left behind, never feel like you got it, always be willing to learn. Hey, if one of the things you want to learn is how to grow your online fitness business, I got a free ebook called The 10 Commandments of Online Training. It'll show you exactly how to grow your online fitness business, even if you don't have a big following, even if you're not certified, even if you don't have a lot of experience. The link is in the description. Download it now for free. All right.